Beginning current Daf Masechtas Kidushin Daf Lamed Beis, you begin 3 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara continues the discussion of Kibud Avaim and Yiras Avaim, because like that was the theme of the previous Mishnah, which we spoke about mitzvahs Av Laben, mitzvah Ben Alav, and that was saying women and men are both obligated in respecting their elders, their parents, their mother and the father in both Kavod and Yira. And the Gemara explains what exactly are the parameters of the halacha. Turn to today's daf. Some discussing today's daf are these two mitzvahs of kibud, which is honoring, and moira, of having fear of the parents. Question is by kibud mishal mi. This is you have to honor parents. From whose resources do you have to honor? Is it from the sons or is it from the parents? The halacha about padiyas meister sheni regarding redeeming meister sheni, the halacha is that you can redeem meister sheni. You don't have to take it up to Yerushalayim. You just have to add on a fifth if you're the owner. If you're not, then actually you don't have to add on. That's going to come into regarding whose resources is what. The halacha that if his father violates words of Torah, the question is, what do you do? How do you tell your father that he's doing an isser? It's not respectful to tell him, but at the same time you have to correct him. The halacha about mitzav alasis, if he commands you to do something, and machal kavodi, if his father or if his rebbe or if the nasi or if the melech is pardoning on their honor, is that considered forgiven or not? And zakan v'seva, the halacha about mipnei seva talking about dat pnei zaken, regarding how to define what and who the zaken is. So begin the current daf Lamed Beis, on the bottom of Lamed Aleph and Beis, 3 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. Turn about in the Brisa, a well-known halacha. Ezehu meira ve'ezehu kibud. What's considered fear of one's parents? Like it says, ish imevav tiro, you have to have fear. Ve'ezehu kibud, and what's a mitzvah of kibud? 2 different mitzvahs. Says the Brisa, meira means, what do you mean having fear from your parents? Well-known halacha, lo yamad b'mkaimai. Not supposed to stand in his designated place where he stands when he's there with the elders, with his friends in council, that he stands generally in a certain place. You're not supposed to stand over there. In Tati's seat, in Mami's seat, we don't sit in his seat. Says you don't contradict his words. And this a lot of people don't know. Like Rashi says, if his father was discussing with someone else, and when they were disagreeing about something at the halacha, so the son shouldn't say, it appears he shouldn't weigh in. Machriya actually means weighing, like shouldn't weigh in and say, I think what this guy is saying makes sense. You shouldn't not only not contradict his father, but shouldn't even weigh in to say, I think what this guy's saying makes sense. Kibud, what does it mean to honor a parent? So it's a machal, a mashka, give him to eat, give him to drink, malbish machasa, give him to clothing, give him covering, machnes and maitzi, take him out, take him in. All these things are taking care of him. These are things about kibud avim. Now, a very important question, says Gemara Getinda B'Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. Mishel mi. When you're giving your father to eat and you give him to drink and you're honoring, from whose resources is it from? So there's a machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda says Mishel ben. It's the son's resources. The son's got to take out his own checkbook and take care of his papa. Rabbi Nasa Bar Ishim says no, Mishel av. It's from the father's resources. The father's open credit card. I'll take care of you, Tata. I'll give him to eat. I'll give you gourmet club, whatever it is, but it's your credit card. So Oidle Rabban Rav Yirmiyah, the rabbis, they instructed to Rav Yirmiyah, some say Lebreder Rav Yirmiyah, to the son of Rav Yirmiyah, Kemanda Amar Mishal Av. The halacha is like the one who says that it's going to be from the father's resources. So the Gemara says, Meisved, the Gemara has a difficulty, which Tais actually brings, that sounds like the different Masal Eiru, that's the halacha. And that's a pasuk in Shultz Rav Achoy and the Parashat Yisrael, and the obligation is from the father's resources. Now, if the father doesn't have resources, so the Ri and Rabbi Nachman says, okay, then of course the son's going to have to support from his own resources because he's not any less than another person. Gemara brings many places that they force those who have the ability to support. But if the father has, then the resources are going to be from the father and not from the son. The first place has a very interesting conversation. It's just interesting, like if you have kibud av and avedis asma, avedis chavera, what should you do? Because each one is going to be, has precedence over the other one. But at the end of the day, it comes down that you take care of your own stuff first, and only afterwards would you address the obligations that you have otherwise. But the Gemara asks on this halacha. You tell me the halacha is that when you have to support your father, it's only from the father's resources. Maybe the Gemara asks for the following brisa. Nemer, it says a pasuk, honor your father and your mother. But Nemer, it says a pasuk, honor Hashem from your wealth. Now, Ma'al, just like over there, is b'chisach and kiss, because it's saying honor Hashem from your resources when you're losing money. I've come b'chisach and kiss. So to over here, It's when you're losing, when it's a loss of money. Now, but if you can tell me halacha l'maisa, when you have to honor your father, you have to buy your father Shabbos Suda. It's going to be from the father's paycheck. My nafka limine. So, what exactly is there chasar and kiss regarding the son that the Bryce is saying, like something over here? What? You just swipe the credit card, no problem. I have no problem buying it for you. So, how is that considered a chasar and kiss? Says Gemara lebita malacha. The guy is busy. Says Tom at work. Says Shevela, can you get me? I'm not going out to get the liver, whatever. So even though the father's credit card is being swiped, but it's considered chasar and kiss because the guy has to lose out from his job. So Gemara says Tashma try to bring a raya from the following brisa. The brisa says Beis Achim, two brothers, Shnei Shutfin, or two partners, or Ava B'nai, a father and a son, or Ava Tamidai, a teacher and a student. The halacha is any one of these partnerships, Paidin Zelazem Meiser Sheni. They could redeem each other's Meiser Sheni. Meaning Rashi explains. Let's say if you'll take the case of Abba B'nai, the father and the son. Let's say the father has Meiser Sheni. So we said Meiser Sheni is basically you have produce. You say give of truma to the kohen, Meiser Rishon give to the Levi. Meiser Sheni is the second type. You have to take it up in Yerushalayim. Let's say you don't want to. It's too much. Huh? No, we're talking about with Rishos. Let's say, right? The thing is that you could redeem it and take the money and eat the money in Yerushalayim, but you could keep the produce over here. Now the halacha is that if someone redeems, if it's the balabas, he has to add on a fifth. If it's someone else, he doesn't have to add on a fifth. So what the Bryce is saying is that the son could redeem the father's Meiser Sheni from his own money without adding a fifth. And the Chiddush is, we don't say, wait a second, come on, Tati and son, they're the same entity. Because he's his beloved, he feeds him, and he's not considered like another person. So it's like the father redeeming himself. We're saying no. The son, or the partner, or whatever, one of these cases, every one of them, you're considered as an andira, and therefore you can redeem his Meiser Sheni without adding on a fifth. That's one halacha. But the main case we want is Abu B'nai. And also, Mechilin Zelazeh Meiser Ani. What does that mean? Say, if let's say the son has Meiser Ani, which in the third and the sixth year, instead of giving Meiser Sheni, you would give the Meiser, the second type, to the poor person. So he could give it to his father if his father is a poor person. And so too, all these cases, even though the person is very dear to him, whether it be a partner, whether it be a student, whether it be whatever one of these cases, you can go ahead and give Meiser Ani, and we don't say, oh, what do you mean? That if you didn't have this Meiser, you would still have to feed the person, so you can't give Meiser Ani. No, we say, you could give your Meiser Ani to that person. Okay, question is, V'yamin Mishal Ben, that's the end of the brisa. But if you say that we had this machlekes regarding who is Kibbut Avim's resources from, if you say it's the son's resources, wait a second. How could you say that the son could give the father Meiser Ani? It comes out, this is your obligation. You have to give your father food and drink from your own money. So you're paying up your debt, Nishal Anim, from the poor people. Meiser Ani is obligation that it's the poor people's money. It's not your money. You just get to decide who gets it. You can't pay up your obligation. If you say it's Mishal Av, it's the father has his obligation. I don't have a chiv to go ahead and give my father food. So I could give my Meiser Ani to me as a poor person. I'll give him no less than the poor person. But if it's my obligation, it's Mishal Ben, so how could I give him the Meiser Ani? This is more late. It's not difficult because it's not hadafa. Yes, the son has an obligation, if you hold Mishal Ben, to feed his father, to give him to drink, a medium grade type. If the father needs an extra suda, meaning more than the regular that's usually eaten, for that he could give him Meiser Ani. For what's excess? Because he's a poor man, the father. So I already gave you your three daily meals. He says, yeah, but I wanted today. I wanted to celebrate, 50 years from Vietnam when I fought. No problem, Ta. I'll give you from my Meiser Ani account. So that's why it can be done, even though it's Mishal Ben. So wait a second. If that's the case, how are you interpreting the brisa? Allah. On this brisa, we have the following teaching. Amar Yehuda says, "Tovi me'ira should come a curse lemishamachas of Meiser Ani." If you're giving your father from your Meiser Ani account, a person should get cursed. Says the Gemara, why? If it's like you just explained that he's giving his father wants to make another barbecue. We already ate supper time. I know, but I get the munchies at 11 o'clock at night. So no problem. I'll take it from my Meiser account. So my nafkamina, why are you cursing this guy? This extra stuff. What's the problem? Says Gemara, even so, zilba milsa. Still disgraceful. It's still embarrassing. You're gonna take out your Meiser checkbook, say here's it's disgraceful. You don't give your father from your Meiser account. So therefore, yeah, you could even say that it's lahadafa and it still would be me'era, but it wouldn't be difficult. Man, the Amma holds that the chiv of kibbut av is mishal ben. Gemara says, okay, Tashma trading another raya. We haven't yet proven if it's mishal av or mishal ben. They asked Rabbi Lazar, how far does it mean that you have to honor your father and your mother? He said to them, it's that the father should take your purse, take your wallet, and throw it in the sea in front of him, and he doesn't shame his father, doesn't embarrass him, which is a very, very difficult halacha, obviously, because it has huge ramifications. If, let's say, a father, you have an abusive father, how far does this go? He takes your wallet and throws it into the ocean, and that's it. You're not supposed to embarrass him. But as I state in halacha, it says the Gemara, v'i amrit. But if you're going to say that kibbut av v'eim is from the son's responsibility, which even though it's going to cost him, it's going to be in chasar and kiss, it's only meaning if that mitzvah of kibbut av is only mishal av, it's the father's resources. So wait a second, that must mean that this wallet that Rabbi Lazar is talking about must be the father's wallet, because the son has no responsibility of his own resources to spend on his father. It's mishal av. So if that's the case, so why should he embarrass his father? Meshugin, take your wallet and throw it into the ocean. What do you want from me?
Isn't there the line that says the son is employed to tzedakah in his father, even if he's
even if he's what?
He's throwing it into the ocean.
And what if he has a responsibility to what? To responsibility to feed to what? Tzedakah. To give him tzedakah, or to even if he throws
gold in the yam.
I don't know, but here the question is that we're saying that he can't embarrass him. Okay, why should I embarrass him? Anyways, it's not my own money. It's the father's money. So we're talking about and this you do see this by kids. They get upset at their parents that what are you wasting the money for? Either they'll say it straight up or not, but it's you're wasting it. It's when you drop. So really Yarshay. So there's a Kidushin that even though this money would have been ours, but he's spending all this money, whatever. So that is a chiddush in that he shouldn't embarrass him, even though it's the father's money. As the Gemara says, that his father was testing him regarding kibbut av, that Avhuna kadosh shidoi, Avhuna tore his silk ba'ampei Rabba Berei in front of his son Rabba. Amar, he said, Ezel, I'm going to go, Echzi, I'm going to see, if he's going to get angry or not. Says the Gemara, what I mean, maybe he will get angry and he'll tell something to his father in the state of anger. But then Rav Huna is going to violate Alif Neibeli of causing a stumbling block in front of a blind person where he's causing his son to sin. What do you mean? He's trying to see how his son, if he's worked on his midas or not, and he's going to tear it and he's going to get angry and you overlift Neiver. Says Gemara, the Mochale Liyakre. Rav Huna was Meichel on his honor, so it wasn't going to be in the front if his son would get angry and tell him something in the heat of the moment, which Taisa says you have to say that he let him know this beforehand, that I'm not going to get upset, because if not, then it's like the halach of niskavan lecha basa chazer all be on the basas leh. If you intended to eat treif, turns out it was kosher. He's like, okay, I'm eating this bacon. That's in it. By the way, it's kosher. It's like, oh, okay, right. So that's itself is considered. Yeah. So it sounds like it's still a real test. Say I'm doing it. I'm okay with this. If we get angry about this, he gives this disclaimer before him. But in the heat of the moment, he rips it. What are you doing, right? So I guess in the heat of the moment, you could still lose it, even if you know that this is only a test, because. He gets angry. Who, the son? It's not like someone who's been I'm saying, but when he gets angry, he's not violating the mitzvah of right. But I'm saying, but it's shaggy, but he still needs b'chili kapara. He violated the isser of disrespecting his father, because in the heat of the moment, he dissed him. So the Gemara says, but wait a second, the Gemara has a problem with the story anyways. But it turns out that he violated mishum bal tashchis. Rav Huna is violating bal tashchis by destroying his garment. How did he do that, even to test? Says he did it by the stitching, where it doesn't really ruin the value of the garment, like by the hem. So So therefore, that's why it wasn't considered baltashkas. Maybe it's for that reason that he didn't get angry because it was by the hem. So he did it when he was angry. So when someone's angry, anything could just like trigger him and flip him out, and you're not really paying attention, and he starts like, oh, I didn't realize that's what it was. So he could still test him with that, even though it was on the hem. Now, but that Taisus on the first Taisus Rabbi Yehuda, just to point out that thing that Taisus points out interestingly regarding when you're throwing his person to the ocean, he says it has to be talking about that the father has some type of a pleasure by doing that. Like the reason why he's throwing it into the ocean was because he wanted to intimidate his family members, not in an abusive way, meaning to say like because he wants to show them like, Tati's in charge. Because if not, if he's throwing the purse, the wallet in the ocean for nothing, he's a Rasha. Because of baltashkas. And even if he did it by mistake and he threw it out in his anger, but still he's having some type of pleasure by throwing it, therefore you shouldn't shame him. But if it's a taka Rasha, you don't have to let him. You don't have to, even if it's Michel Ben. It's only saying because father gets some type of pleasure. He's like, I'm going to show you who's boss, and he throws your wallet in. Okay, then if it's Michel Ben, then your taka wouldn't have to stop. Then you wouldn't be able to embarrass him. But if not, again, you have to know these are delicate halachas, but if it's an abusive situation, not necessarily would a person have to do the kibud, although there is a different halacha besides kibud and murder that this Gemara doesn't talk about, that you always have responsibility, not only mavaza a father. Now, continue related discussion that'll come back about this, how you talk to a father. So Masni le Rabbi Cheskel. Rabbi Cheskel taught Rami Berei to his son Rami a Mishnah Sanhedrin. Mishnah says like this: Hanisrafim bin Niskalim. What it sounds like is that someone that was chayiv a misa of streifer is supposed to be burnt to death, meaning they throw hot lead down his throat and he gets burnt. He got mixed into, on death row, all these other guys that were supposed to be stoned to death. And there's a rule in Sanhedrin of Ayin Tesem and Beis, anytime people on death row, they get mixed together, and you don't know which one's from the lighter death sentence and which one from the more severe death sentence, that they're all going to have to get the lesser death sentence, because you're not permitted to draw the one that's supposed to get the lesser one to give him the more severe punishment that he's not obligated. So what's actually the halacha? So Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says, you're doing the beskila. Okay, you're going to judge all these guys on death row. They're going to get stoned to death, which according to Rabbi Shimon is the lesser one, because he holds shastreifa chamura. The being burned to death is more severe than being stoned to death, as the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Yomi explains the reason for his opinion. Now, that's what Rabbi Cheskel taught his son Rami. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda Berei, so his son Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Cheskel, meaning he was also a son of Rabbi Cheskel, he said, Abba, Tati, lo yisesan yehachi. Don't teach it like this, that the Hanisrafim got mixed in the Niskalim. That would sound like that the Niskalim were the Rav. You're saying someone who's supposed to get burnt got mixed into the Niskalim, like he was in the wrong room. They have all these security doors and this and that, and the stoners are there, and then these are the burners over there, and the guy got into the wrong room. So that would sound like the stoners are the majority. No, don't say that. Because if that were the case, my area is Streifa Chamur, then why would you say the reason why they're all going to get stoned is because Streifa is more severe? Then typically, I wouldn't have to say that they're all going to get, that of course they're not going to get Streifa, because just for a very simple reason that you can't say the all Streifa, because then you'd be going based on the minority. Simply because the Reuben is Kalman, the majority are the stoners. So of course you're going to get stoned, not because more severe and less severe, simply because you go up to the majority.
Who said that has to be right?
That you have to go. What do you mean? We usually go based. Yeah, you're saying. I hear what you're saying. You're saying if it would have been, right? I hear that.
Where's it taking me that they would have done this anyway just because it's right, not because
Right. I guess just because it sounds like when in the plural, I hear you say if it would have been two and two. Yeah. Huh? Well, we're going to get to the point of how he spoke to his father, right? But that was his question. He was saying, why do you need? Don't say it like that, because you would go based on the majority. Because the Reuben is Kalm, no. Say it like this, the other way around. The Skalim and the Srafim, that the stoners got mixed into the burners. That even though the burners are the majority, I think the reason why you have to say this is because the wording sounds like they got mixed into them. I think you would have said different wording. And when you say it like that, it sounds like there's a majority and those get mixed in minority. Upon them. So even though the majority are the burners, no, you're going to judge them by skila because that's the less severe. That would make sense now. That would be the primary reason. Right. So it says that afel him shavus. Right. Right. But upon them, what do you need it to be more? But upon what do you need to be more chamra upon them? Right, but we just can't give them more severe. Right, we're stuck. And
how can we give him a default? Whether it's light or
I'm saying we find that if a guy's running away from court and you can't give him the whatever, you kill him however way you could. So it sounds like that b'diavad, a maharget him to arbet b'diavad, a lebt nicht.
The guy gets
Right. Right. Well, that might be a special because there's a custom coming. Yeah. So but on that, he said back to his son, he said, wait a second, if that's the case, aim a sefer, look at the sefer. Because you only quoted Reb Shimon, and you're telling me I should have taught Reb Shimon differently, but look at the sefer. They say, you're doing the b'streifa. No, not skila. He gets judged b'streifa. Shaskila chamura. They disagree. They say, no, being stoned is more severe, so the lesser is the streifa, and that's what they're going to get. Okay, so according to your words, my ear the skila chamura. He's telling his son, why would you say, oh, because stoning is more severe, typically derubin nisrafin? No, it should be enough because the majority are the burners, the way you're saying it. So Amalei, so he responded back, he says, no, that they're saying that stoning is more severe, that's not really, they're not giving the reason for their opinion. Hasim Rabban Hu de Kamar Reb Shimon, that's just Rabban saying to Reb Shimon that they're going to get, according to Reb Shimon, he said skila. So the Chama say no, they're going to get streifa because we go based on the majority. Because you're right, they are the majority. The way he's telling his father to teach that it's the majority are the burners, not the way he taught the Mishnah. Now, and this the Ka'amr that you said that we should judge them with skila to be lenient on them. No, that's what they're saying. A second point, streifa chamur. No, being burnt is more severe, and meaning this that you said that streifa is more severe. Loy, no, it's not true. That you're not being lenient, you're only being stringent, because to the contrary, skila chamura, being stoned to death is more severe. So therefore, the son basically answered his way to his tati, and he says, it's not. You don't have a good question from the Seifa. Basically, the Seifa has 2 points that Chama is saying. One is because of the majority. Number two, you're trying to tell me that because we're going to go more lenient. Not true that also, Rabbi Shimon. The skila is more chamer, not the Seifa. That's the end of the conversation that we quoted. But the reason why we brought this conversation in was because of the next point. Amalei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel, who was the Rebbe of Rabbi Yehuda, said to him, as he's quoted many times in Shas, Jinna, smart one, like he says in Brachas, like Temelei la'avochachi. Don't tell your father like this to suddenly let him know that he made a mistake, that you're telling him, don't teach like this. That's not appropriate to speak to your father. The time like learn the Brisa. Let's say his father is violating a Dvar Torah, a halacha, which is not something impossible. Al Yomelo, don't tell him, Abba, Avarta Dvar Torah, Tati, you're violating a word, the halacha from the Torah. Al Yomelo, no, it says, Abba, Kach Kas B'Torah, Tati, this is what it says in the Torah. It says, Kach Kas B'Torah? You should say, this is how it's written in the Torah? Then you're going to pain him. It's like you're telling him you're violating a word of Torah. How does that help? Say, Tati, it says, you know, what's the difference? I'll rather tell him, Abba mikro kasaba Torah kach. In other words, he tells him the pasuk as it's written without saying anything else. And the father on his own will understand that he made a mistake. So it's not like he's telling him, Abba kach kasaba Torah, like this is how it's written in the Torah. No, he just says mikro kasaba Torah kach. So he doesn't tell him anything related to what he did. He just tells him the pasuk. And then the father will understand. So I'll start laning, in the corner of the room. That's how they get verstehen. Sucht Rechilis jetzt. That's also sucht my father Tata. Now the Gemara continues. Related on this topic, Elazar ben Masya Yomi says, "Aboy mehashkeni mayim." If the father says, "Please bring me a drink of water," umitzvah la'asais, at the same time, the son has a mitzvah in front of him to do. Let's say to bury a dead person, or to go escort someone, or lavai, whatever it is. So, maniach ani kavod abba, I'm going to leave the honor of my father. Va'is a mitzvah. I'm going to do the mitzvah. I'm not going to listen to my father. Shani ve'abba chayav mitzvah, because me and my father are obligated in mitzvahs. So therefore, instead of honoring him, bring him the cup of water and say, "Tam, I'm going to daven. Have some other mitzvah." He says, no. If it's possible for the mitzvah to be done by someone else to give that hesped, someone else to do it, and your father asked you to drive him somewhere, let that other mitzvah be done by someone else. Let him go and do the honor of his father. Which is like Izzy ben Huda, which is your honor of your father comes first, if the mitzvah can be done by someone else. He says, father is pardoning his honor. Tati, can I sit in your seat? Sure, Shefel, no problem. I can sit in my seat. His honor is forgiven. If the Rebbe, if the Rav is Meichel on his honor, no, it cannot be Meichel on his honor. You cannot go ahead and come in the middle of the drusha. The Rav is talking. The door has to be locked. If the Rav cannot be Meichel, even if he says, yeah, it can't be Meichel on his covet. He says, no, it's not true. Even if the Rav is Meichel on his covet, okay. His covet is honored, it can be pardoned. Like it says the pasuk in Shemais. It says Hashem went in front of them during the day. Hashem is leading them. Yeah, Hashem is meichel on his covet. The Rav could be meichel on his covet. Some Rabbi says, how can you compare the two of them? Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the pasuk you bring is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Alma dilehu. It's God's world. And it's His Torah. So Hashem could be pardoning on His own honor because everything is His. But you think that this is the Rav's Torah, the Talmud Chacham's Torah? What do you mean? The honor is totally in the Torah. He can't be meichel on the covet of the Torah, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. He's just a warden of it. But how could he be meichel on his honor? Then Rabbi himself actually retracts and says, yes, Torah dilehi. It actually is his own Torah. Like it says in pasuk in the first perek in Tehillim, which it says, Kiyim b'seichas Hashem cheptzai, because only in the Torah of Hashem is His desire. So we know it starts off in Torah Hashem. But then it says, in His Torah, He will toil, He will talk in day and night. So in the beginning it's Torah Hashem. But once a person learns it and he knows it, it becomes his own Torah, and therefore he can be meichel on the covet of his own Torah, because it's his Torah. It says, is that really so that Rava holds that he can be meichel on his covet, the Rav on his own Torah? But for Rav himself, we have a story. What's the story? Mashki behilul d'brei. He was making chasna for the son. You know, the tati goes around with that expensive bottle. He's walking with a big smile on his face, and he's waiting. He says, "Oh, come here, Chaim, come here." It's a big bottle, and Rav is going out pouring for the olam. V'dalei kasa, and he was pouring a couple of the papa, all his friends, all the Talmidei Chachamim, all these great Samarim. They come and they got up from of him. Rav is coming, and the Balsam, they got up. For these two Amaram, he poured them. They didn't stand up and they were sitting there schmoozing, and he poured them the cup. Ikbid, he was bothered. And he says to them, Rabbi says, I don't understand. Hanu Rabbanan, these rabbis, meaning you, are Rabbanan, you guys are so great chachamim, you're so distinguished in your eyes that you don't stand up in front of me. Hanu Rabbanan. And these other rabbis, your friends, your colleagues that they stand up in front of me, Lav Rabbanan, they're not rabbis? And like, what's going on? Why did they stand up for me and you didn't stand up? So wait a second. So we see that Rava was bothered by this. I thought Rav Shemachal Kavaydai by the Machal. So Rava is being Michael on this cover. Obviously, that's not going to help. So you see, he was bothered they didn't stand up for him. Pursue moreover a papa. Another story. Have a mashki behilula de Abba Mar Berei. So by Abba Mar, his son, he was going around. So you see, it's a minikudim to go around, give the expensive bottle and go around pouring the oilam. But Rabbi Yehuda, he was pouring for Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yehuda, look, he didn't stand up in front of him. Nikbid. He was bothered by this. What's this? Why are you not standing up? So one thing we see that even though you're meichel, it's not a mechila. But Rav himself just said that the Rav could be meichel on this covet. Yeah, and this is what you see most people do. Hidr me evidly boy. Epis hidr you have to do, which Rashi says this is what most people do. Most people don't do even when you're supposed to stand up. Like Rashi says, you move a little bit as if you want to stand up. You give that little shuckle, This is the marker for that halacha. Sometimes you're supposed to stand up, but this idea that if he's meichel, but still you got to show a little bit that he was bothered by. Why didn't you shake a little bit, move a little bit to show that as if that little hidr you have to do? I remember. No, even if he's Michael, but if you hold that Mechila works, so why is he Ikbid? But if you hold Mechila doesn't work, meaning it sounds like from the Gemara's question that even if he would have been Michael,
He was Michael because he was serving.
it wouldn't help. Yeah, or you could say that by default, by serving, he's already being Michael on this cover. That's why you're being bothered by that. Oh, because even though I'm being Michael, but you have to do a little bit of a hiddur. The Rav says, yeah, it's okay, and Take put him there in the corner, or whatever, something like that. That's not you're supposed to do a hiddur, even if he's Michael, even you hold that he can be Michael. Rashi says, even the one who holds it, if the teacher is pardoning on his honor is going to be pardoned. But a leader of Klal Yisrael, if he pardons on his honor, his honor cannot be forgiven. He says, really? Maisa, we want to the following brisa. Maisa, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Tzaddik. Sounds like we're like by the Seder night, by the Aguda. There's a story of Lezer, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Tzaddik, Hashem Mesubim, the base Mishta. They were sitting around by a festive meal of Bnei Gamliel, of the son of Gamliel. And so Gamliel, the Tata, the Zaida, whatever it was, was going around giving bromfen for the Olam. So Nasla Kaisar Rabbi Eliezer B'lei Notli. He gave a cup to Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer didn't take it. Rabbi Eliezer he gave it to Rabbi and he took it. Only Rabbi Eliezer said to Yeshua, "How's Yeshua? What is this Yeshua? Only Yeshua? Of course I didn't take the cup. We're going to sit, and we live Beribi, which the word Beribi means a great person, the God Ladar, and every time it says Beribi, he's going to stand and pour for us? Well, how can you take a cup? Chutzpah, also, the God Ladar, the Ma'etzes, he's coming and he's pouring, you're going to take a cup from him? Amalei, so Yeshua said to him, we find someone greater than Gamliel that served. That's Avram Gadol Hadar. Avram was the Gadol Hadar, was the great one of the generation. What does it say in Bereshis? He was standing over his 3 yokel guests that were sitting over there, and he poured him. You see that it's not a bad thing. You're going to say no. The reason why he poured them was because they appeared to him like ministering angels. So if a malachim a Gadol Hadar could pour, it's not true. They appeared like Arabs. That he said to them, wash off your feet. Because the Arabs used to bow down to the dust of their feet. As the Gemara says, they said, "What, you suspect that we were Arabs that would bow down to the dust of our feet?" So so we shouldn't have Rebbe stand and pour of us. What, he's bigger than Avram Avinu? Avram Avinu gave to drink. So why should we be any less? Some of the Tzaddik spoke up now. He was also sitting around the table. And he says, why are you leaving the honor, the dignity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the omnipresent? You're dealing about the honor of people? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Meishav Ruchis. He makes the winds come, Umal Nasim, he lifts up the clouds, he makes the rain come down, and the earth sprouts, and he sets the table in front of every single person. God himself serves us. And what? He's bigger than God, that he can't serve us? Okay, but one thing is we see, not like Ravashi. Rashi said the Nasi Shamachal Kavoidoi. In Kavoid Machal. Ramili was the Nasi, and we see that he could be Michael on his covered. Says Gemara, you're right. Eliyat Mahachid. Rather, if we're going to teach the teaching, it's going to be to the contrary. Amr Rashi says no. A filman domin Nasi Shamachal Kavoid Machal. You're right. Even if you're going to say, as we just proved, that the Nasi, if the leader is pardons his honor, it's going to be pardoned. Melech Shamachal Kavoidoi. But if the king pardons his honor, in Kavod Machal, his honor is not going to be pardoned, even though Hashem is. But Hashem, here's a pasuk that says, that place you should surely place on you a king, which is that his awe should be on you, and therefore the king cannot be Machal Kavod. He needs to be the one that is that type of figure that we don't see in any way less than, and therefore he cannot be Machal in this covenant. Right. But here we have a gossip. The pasuk is telling us not to do that. So although God himself serves us, but the king himself is not allowed to. Very good. So he can't be Michael. I mean, Taira is your own Taira. But very good. In the Brisa, it says a pasuk in the Yikra, Mipnei Seva Takum. So again, we're talking about honoring parents. Get into a conversation now regarding honoring others, like the Nasi and the Melech. Now we're talking about the El Tiriyidin. So it says upon the Yikrim, they say in front of the elder you should stand up. Now Yachal Afilim Zaken Ashmai. You would think that you would even get up in front of a Zaken Ashmai. What is that? So Rashi says Ashmai is from the word of like Asham, like a guilty person, Arusha, Amauritz, an ignorant person, a real wicked person. Which Taisa says, how could you say that? You because the Gemara says that later on that Seva sounds like even Zakan Ashmai, but it's a mitzvah even to hit such a guy, to degrade him, to embarrass him. How could Zakan Ashmai mean sometimes a Rosh Ha'aretz? So Beit Tam says no. Ashmai is from the word of shemeimin, like desolate, meaning he's an ignorant person, a boor, and that's the type of person. So it's either it's a guy a rusha or a guy grub, elter yid, weiß gunish, doesn't know anything. Either way, you would think that the mitzvah of standing up is even for a zaken ashmai. Tamlam zaken says no. It's the pasuk says v'darta p'nei zaken. The same pasuk you have to honor, glorify the face of an elderly person. Vein zaken el chacham. When you say the word zaken, that connotes the guy is intelligent. He's a sage. Because notice the pasuk in Bamidbar it says esveli shivim ish mizikni yisrael. Gather me 70 people from the elders of the Jewish people, which, as Rashi points out, we learn out of Gezer Shov of Zaken from Zikne. Just like over there was Gedolim Chacham, because the pasuk says over there, Ashiyadata came Zikne Abashoichunim. These were the elders of the people, they were the leaders of the people, they were Gedolim Chachamim. So to be here, when it says Zaken, it means a guy or someone who's sagacious, an elderly person that's wise. That's who you have an honor to respect. That is the Tanakama. The next opinion says, Rabbi Yisrael Gliliam says, no, ain't Zaken a well-known drasha, ela misha kana chachma. Zaken means someone that acquired wisdom. Because like Rashi says, it's an atrikin. It's the acronym of Zaken is Zeshakana, which the disciple famously says, well, where do you see the word chachma? Zaken is Zeshakana, maybe acquired money. How do you know? The disciple says, yeah, but we know Didabe, Dokani, Dolakani Makani, right? Dokani, right? So the one kinyan that you have is Chachma. So it's saying Zaken is Zeshakana, it must be Zeshakana Chachma, which the Gemara is going to shortly ask, well, that's the same thing as the Tanakhama. They both said, there's be someone with Chachma. What's the difference between him and the Tanakhama? But he says, how do I know that the word Zaken means that he's kind of Chachma? Shema says, the Mishlei. Hashem kanoni reishes darkei. The Torah says, Hashem acquired me the first of his path. So you see, the kinyan refers to someone who has Chachma, and therefore, again, it's only for someone who is a chacham, not just tam el yid. Now, you would think that you would have to stand up from this older person from a far place. It says in the pasuk, takum, stand up, and in the same pasuk it says v'adarti, you should glorify. Which loy marti kima, I only said you have to stand up for him only in a place that there is a glorifying of him when you stand up. Which, as Rashi explains, that's only within Dalet Amis. Because when it's within Dalet Amis, it's obvious that you're doing it for that person. If he's over there somewhere in the other end of the shul and he's walking in, he doesn't see. It's not evident. Walking with your Dalet Amis, you're in your 6 to 8 feet. You get up. So that's when you have the mitzvah of standing up. Now, Yachal Yadrena b'Mammon, you would think that you would have to honor him with money, meaning that it says Vadarta. You would think Hidur means monetarily. You have to honor him with money. As we'll see later on, we find we have like said the Pnei Gadol, we find that the word heder is regarding monetary. So it says takum in the pasuk, you have to stand up Vadarta, which we compare. Makima, just like standing up, there's no loss of money when you stand up. Certain things we say, kostnish kein Geld, right? Just stand up. So too, the other part of the pasuk says to honor it also without a loss of money. Now, you would think when it comes in the basic keys, when it comes to the bathroom, or if he's in the bathhouse, in the mikveh, you would think you're sitting on the basic keys, you stand up, or in the bathhouse, you get up. No, it says talking about dart. You should get up and you should glorify. Again, I only said you stand in the place where it's glory. It's not really azah shayin azach. By skisi, getting up a person, it's not a mokum of hiddur. Now, yocham yatzim einav. You would think that you could close your eyes, as if you don't see him. And machzach nish visendik. Close your eyes. And Talmud says no, takum. You should stand up. And the end of the passage says v'yiresa, and you should have fear, which is dava masal alei, but something that's given over to the heart. Which later on the Gemara is going to ask on the next dav. So what are we talking about? Wicked people? What do you mean? You would have thought you could close your eyes and make it like as if you didn't see him? What does that mean? But akapanim, it's something that's given over to the heart of the one who's doing it. He knows if he saw him or not, because the person could excuse himself from people and say that I'm not a Rasha. You can judge me favorably, like maybe I didn't see him, right? So therefore, it says, "Nemaboy b'yiresa melikecha." You should have fear from your God that all your thoughts are revealed to him, which is a very scary thing. Like imagine someone saw your phone, everything on it. Right? God sees every thought that you had. He knows that your intention was not to do his mitzvah, standing up for that elderly person. So since it's something that's given over to the heart that no one really knows, like, oh, I didn't see I was on my phone. I didn't realize the guy came in.
Who are you standing for? The person or the way Rabbi Hashem created the world?
Right, so it depends. It's like when you take, it's like, they say that someone could be your esrog. When you stand up for the elderly person, you're standing up for him, or you're standing up because Hashem said, yeah, you have to stand up and he walks in. Good question. It's really about everything. Like when you do it, you're doing because Hashem said, or you're doing because, no, Hashem wanted you to experience who's this elderly person. You have to respect him. So actually, shortly, the Gemara is going to make it sound like that, as if there is something, actually on the next stuff, so about the person himself. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, he says, how do we know that the older person, that he should not make, if he could go another way, shouldn't make people stand up for him. Don't be matriach people. Don't make people exert themselves for you. I notice in the pasuk zakin, it says the elderly person. It says at the end of the pasuk v'yuresa. Meaning the word v'yuresa is close to the word zakin to say that even the elderly person should also have fear. Meaning to say, don't be matriach people. Don't walk in and say me elteri shtayov. Right? Like he wakes, he's dafka passes by. See, why are you not standing up? He also should, Isha ben Yehuda, he says, it says in the pasuk they say v'takim. For an elderly person, you should stand up. He says, I feel called seva mashma. He says, even every old person, which interesting, Rashi even l'shitasa that it says zaken ashmai means a rasha amaretz. He says, according to that was Taisa's kasha really, according to Isa ben Yehuda, he says even such an old person, you have to, no matter who the old person is, you have to stand up for him because it says they say v'takim. Okay, that's the end of the brisa. Now the Gemara discusses the details. Sounds like, says the Gemara, they both said that this elderly person, this seva, has to be a chacham. The Tanakama said it because it says zaken, which zaken we learn out from elsewhere of Ziknei Yisrael. Basically, also said from the word zaken. He just said the word zaken means zeshakan the chachma. So they're both saying the same thing, that the older person has to be intelligent, has to be someone that's a sage. So the Gemara, the difference between them is yonik v'chacham. If a guy is young and smart. If a guy is young and smart, you don't have to stand up for him. And that's what Tanakama was saying. He says zaken is only a zaken that's a chacham because we learn it from the pasuk Esfeli Shim Ish Meziknei Yisrael. Those were zikenim and chachamim. Like it says, Ashudatekim, they were elderly person. They were there in Mitzrayim, always leading the people. They were well-known elderly people. So it's not stam being a chacham. It's a chacham and a zaken. We say Glili, however, that he changes the pasuk from its understanding from literally being an older person, and he darshans the word zakin as zeshakana chachma. So, but he holds a filiyonik v'chacham that even if a person is young and sagacious, a young guy, but he's 27, but he's a grois rebbe, he's mamish, he knows who knows what. Yeah, you have to stand up for him also. Says what's the reason basically that he darshans like this? I'm going to tell you like this. If you would think to say like the Tanakama, that it's all talking about one thing, the pasuk. It's talking about an elderly person, a seva, that is a zaken, meaning that's a chacham. So the pasuk should have been written like this. When they seva zaken, talking about darta, it should have put it together. In front of an elderly zaken, you should get up and you should glorify it. And then you would learn the gzeir shava of zaken from the Ziknei Yisrael, and you know he has to be a chacham. Why did I split it? It's like in two halves. When they say v'takim kama, but that's when they zaken. L'meimer to say the high love high. This one's not this, the high love high, and that one's not this. In other words, there's two different things. There's when they say v'takim v'darta. You could use the two words in the middle either way. You could say when they say v'takim v'darta, and then kama talking v'darta when they zaken. Who's the zaken? It's shekana chachma, which is even the young person. Now, for the fact that the pasuk was particular about chachma in the second half, then we say that even save the first half is also cannot be a zaken ashmai, cannot be this boorish old person, because as Rashi says, you cannot say that Rabbi Yossi is also disagreeing on the zaken ashmai part, because if that would be the case, that would be exactly like Isa ben Yehuda, who holds that it's every older person. But shma minaf aliyanik v'chacham. But one thing we see, says Rabbi Yossi, that obviously the second half is an independent idea. That as long as you're shekana chachma, even if you're not old, even if you're a young person. Now, but on the Kama, on the other hand, according to him, why does it split it into two? If you're right, it's really talking about one person. Simply because we needed to go ahead and have the word zakin near. We couldn't say they save zakin talking about darta, because then the word zakin wouldn't be near the word yuresa. Now we needed yuresa to be near that to say that the old person should also have yuras Hashem, that it shouldn't be matriach people and walk that they have to stand up for him. So therefore, that's how I split it up. Right. Yeah. So what would the other mandama do? Yeah. So he says maybe the Targum held like the other mandama. But the Tanakama, my time. What's the reason the Tanakama that it's specifically a zakin that's a chacham that he learns it all as one? Says Gemara, if you think that's really two different individuals talking about, that's the case. The Torah should have written by both of them these two ideas of Kima and Hidur. As you can see in time of Lama Gimel and Aleph. It should have said, when they save it talking about Darta, and talking about Darta when they Zakin. Meaning the way basically is learning is like learning it like you're taking both words for both. You can't, well, it should have said it both times, talking about two different categories. Midloikas of Hachiv, in fact, that doesn't say that. Obviously it's talking about one person, therefore it only says one time that we're talking about Darta, because it's talking about one person, therefore that's why he disagrees with Risak Lili. Thank you to any time posting us.